Great. Wow, technology, okay. So, let's see. So we're going to talk about zombies. We're going to talk about the team that I'm on at Red Hat. It's still auto-advancing. So I guess it's just going to have to be okay. And then just in case I put everyone to sleep, I will do kind of a TLDR at the end. So first of all, who the heck am I? I am not on any social media. I went and deleted myself. So don't look. I will have at the end of my slides a section for references, got some contact info as well. So my professional background started when I was a little kid. Been programming and into software development for a very, very long time. Professionally, about 20 years ago, started at IBM doing test, mostly hardware test. Went from there to Red Hat, where I was on the front line as a support engineer, which is a very exciting job. Worked with small companies, big companies, and everything in between. From there, went into QE, which is where I am now, and recently, last 5 years or so, I have been working on the container runtimes team, doing QE, and then IBM got the hunger, and so here I am again. This talk is about soft and squishy, yummy brains and zombies. Now, what I mean when I say zombies, I'm going to spell this out a little bit, because I don't mean to offend anybody. What this really is individuals who have a particular taste and always very urgent needs. I'm sure that we have all run into zombies before. I've been a zombie myself. So where I'm at now, so the containers runtimes team is responsible for Upstream, Podman, Builda, and Scopio. It is the container runtime tools, the whole workflow in those three basically. And I'm going to tell you why we've got a horde of developers, what keeps them begging for more, and how we're going to avoid panic. So. As you may expect, related to zombies, kind of the bigger the brain, the more zombies are attracted to it. This also applies, slides. Okay. I guess it has a range or batteries or something.
Yeah, there's a range
there. Okay. So brain size also applies to open source projects. The bigger and more popular your open source project is, the more developers are attracted to it, and zombies as well. And you really don't have any control over who shows up to work on things. Though my experience has been most of the zombies that come along and the developers as well. It's almost like Ignite Karaoke without a choice. Go back. Maybe I just don't need slides. I'll just... So my experience has been most developers do support kind of a shift left philosophy, where we're trying to put our changes and our tests as closely as possible, enabling really fast feedback loops to the developers or contributors. Generally speaking, I don't run into a lot of open source developers that come in from the community who are interested in working on documentation. Most of them are pretty well entrenched in things that enhancements that they want to implement or bugs they want to fix, that kind of thing. So wow, there's like a 5-second delay. Is there a zombie over here? So how we avoid panic, right? So a key element here, and I'm going to get into this in detail, is keeping things very, very simple. Developers are, in general, not so interested in automation, though I have, over the years, convinced them to actually write their own tests, which is kind of a big win for me. So we're going to go into some of the details about that. Right, so for upstream automation, and in particular, working with the containers runtimes team, the main issue that I've had to face is that for container tools, it's incredibly difficult to run container tests inside of containers. And unsurprisingly, most DevOps tools, especially for test automation, really want to kind of confine you into containers. There are some exceptions, which I will go into. And man, these slides are just going to do whatever they want to do. I think it's a test. Okay, so for so for non-Kelvin and Hobbes fans, transmogrify, this is where an 8-year-old boy gets a refrigerator box and builds a machine that can transform himself into a vicious beast. What I've done is, for our CI system, is essentially take this workflow and transmogrify it to meet our needs, because we have to run in VMs or bare metal. So I knew it was going to do that. I'm getting faster. So essentially what we're doing is, with the container model, right, you've got kind of a recipe file, a Docker file or a container file, and you're running through a build process. You end up with an addressable artifact in the form of a container image. So I said, well, we'll do exactly the same thing. We will have kind of a recipe file and transmogrify that instead into a virtual machine disk image, following kind of the same model where we can include all the tools and scripts that we need in those disk images. The primary way that we do that today is with the tool from HashiCorp called Packer. And that, combined with some fancy bash scripts and make files and whatnot, lets us spit out come on, slides. There we go. Maybe it's I just look at them and they do something. This gives us basically addressable disk images that we can spin off VMs for that are identical in every way. And it allows us to take our simple tooling and embed them into the VM images as one step to avoiding panic. Go! It worked. I guess that's the new regime. So one thing that I have found is, especially upstream, and working with the community and developers on an open source project like this or open source projects, is the developers are very kind of narrowly focused and concentrating on incredibly specific items, issues or bugs or features they're trying to implement or fix. Sometimes implement bugs. I guess they do that sometimes on purpose. It's job security. So it's very important that we focus on incredibly simple tooling. And keep it very approachable to developers, because I'm not around all the time, and they may need to go in and fix their automation or tweak it, or enhance it in some way. So the primary way that we do that is with probably the most ugliest scripting language ever composed by man. It is so bad. In fact, yes, the zombies are afraid of it. Fortunately, though, for the main case for using Bash and relying so heavily on Bash is the bloody thing is everywhere. You don't have to install it. You don't have to set it up. I mean, the thing is on your microwave when you power cycle it or whatever, right? So other tools, again, sticking with the simple theme, right? So sedoc and grep, I mean, these things have been around forever. They kind of don't break, or when they do break, it's in very kind of known and predictable ways. The other thing, we deal with a little bit of structured data coming back from or going out to container tools or tests and whatnot, and mostly JSON. And so for that, of course, there's the venerable JQ, which for some reason, having only 2 letters in its name, it is fantastically powerful if you haven't used it for processing JSON. There's one for YAML too. I think it's called YAGL. Basically exactly the same thing. So we need to stick everything together as well. So this is another important aspect of it. And because we're dealing with zombies, it's got to be simple. They've got to be able to read it. Unfortunately, that means that they have to be able to speak YAML. So it's kind of just a requirement at this point. There are some new things coming along where you can put some of this into code, but pretty much YAML is the way to go, and it has just kind of been established and around for a long time, so it's kind of a known quantity. I'm going to plug these guys because they've been absolutely fantastic for us, cirrusci.org. It's kind of a little tiny CI service. I believe it started out of a garage in New York City. But the thing that they've got going for them that was absolute game changer for us is they work with all the major cloud providers out there, and they abstract away the cloudiness and the VM-ness of your CI system and make that transparent, right? So the zombies can wrangle the YAML as best as they can, and the thing just kind of it just works. They are free for open source projects as well. They do have paid services if you've got private repositories and whatnot, but they've been fantastic. This is really important for us from the perspective of being able to have the YAML for our CI built into the code repositories, because it works so well with kind of the get workflow of submitting a change. So for example, if I build a new virtual machine image and want to introduce that into our CI, I can do that in a PR and keep that change isolated from anything else that's going on. With people working on other aspects of the various projects. And then, once that PR gets merged, of course, then we've got the new virtual machine image gets deployed out for everyone to use. Is anybody sleeping? I guess I don't need this slide. That's pretty cool. So in conclusion, I mean, working with open source and working upstream especially, you are not going to get away from having developers come in and always being needy for one thing or another. And there's very little that you can do. I don't know of any open source project to date that will turn away developers and free help. So it's always going to be coming in. And then, of course, as your projects grow and mature, there's always going to be new needs, new tests coming in, new ways of testing, new architectures and things like that, right? So you've got to be able to deal with these things, again, in a reliable way, in a simple way that scales. As well as keeping things readable even to zombies. And I'm just going to reiterate what has been said so many times over and over again here, is that you've got lots of tools and techniques for doing things like YAML. But at the end of the day, it really is kind of the people and the human-to-human relationships and communication that drives everything. If you don't have that, you're not going to accomplish anything with no matter what tools you're using. So that's my talk. Thanks for listening. I hope I didn't melt anybody's brains too badly. If I did, some of us won't be leaving here hungry. I do have a slide for references here, though this will probably last only 4.7 seconds from now. So write quickly. The second item on there is how to contact me. I'm basically all over in the Podman community. If you go to the podman.io/community page and just look for Evich in any of those Slack, Discord, Matrix, IRC, or whatever, you will find me. You probably could also guess my email address. So thanks, everyone.